I absolutely love talking about Mack Defense and Mack in general, right? It's been a huge part of my life. And like I said, I'm very proud to have the opportunity to represent the company and what the Mack brand and what Mack Defense can bring to our military customers around the world and even our federal customers as well, whether it's various federal agencies. So again, like I said earlier, our mission is always to bring the best of what the Mack brand can produce and give that to our end customers and make sure they can complete their mission and return home safely. So,
welcome to Beyond the Bulldog, presented by Mack Trucks. I'm your host, Brian Wright. What you can expect from Beyond the Bulldog is to learn, enjoy, and participate from the comfort of your seat, whether on the road or off. You'll engage in topics and stories from people that work throughout the trucking industry. This is mile marker number 19. We have a conversation with David Hartzell, President and CEO of Mack Defense. In this episode, you'll learn about the specialty manufacturer for our military and government, the history of Mack Trucks in defense, and what goes into taking a rugged Mack truck and converting it to a military-spec truck.
You're listening to Beyond the Bulldog, presented by Mack Trucks.
We are here with David Hartzell, President and CEO with Mack Defense. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Very good to be here, and I'd love to be here and talk about Mack Defense. So
that sounds great. Well, for the sake of everybody, if you will, introduce yourself, your background, and what you do at Mack Defense.
Yeah, thank you. I'm David Hartzell. I've been with the Mack brand since 1988. So for many years, it's been the bulk of my professional career has been spent with Mack, and throughout that career, I'm a degreed engineer. So most of my time working in the company, I was on the engineering side, helping develop our products and so on, and even had the very distinct honor actually to lead the engineering effort for the Mack brand for a number of years in what we call the old Mack Engineering Development and Test Center, which was based in Allentown, Pennsylvania. That facility is now, we call it the Mack Experience Center, but its origin was as the engineering center. And like I said, as an engineer and having spent most of my career in the trucking world, right, to have that opportunity to run that operation was pretty much a career milestone for me, right? But then since then, obviously, I've had the opportunity to join Mack Defense in 2015. Went over there and leading the engineering efforts and then introducing program management as our business started to grow, and some of the complexity of the defense programs and so forth require specialization and skill set for that type of capability. So we added program management, and at one point I started taking over the purchasing efforts for Mack Defense, because we have some unique things that we have to buy ourselves. We can't rely on the Mack or the Volvo Group to purchase those materials for us because of the nature of the materials, and you need certain clearances with the U.S. government and so on. So I took over that, and then in 2017, late in the year, my boss at the time, who was the president of Mack Defense, decided to leave the company for another opportunity. Lucky for me, I was asked to take over as acting head of Mack Defense, and then at the beginning of 2018, they made it permanent. So I've been the president and CEO since the beginning of 2018, and we've had a lot of really interesting opportunities and things happening. And unfortunately, in the last number of years, when the world's not such a great place and there's different things going on, and even now with most countries looking to increase defense spending and so on, our business gets very busy, right? Providing products and capabilities back to service, mostly our U.S. military, customers, but also our ally nations around the world. So,
what kind of engineering did you study?
Believe it or not, I'm an electrical engineer.
Got it.
Degreed electrical engineer. And I actually started as an aerospace engineer. I also wanted to be, I really wanted to be in the aerospace and defense industry from a very young age. I was always interested in the space program, and then was really interested in, just that level of technology and so forth. And I went to Penn State University, and at the time, you had aerospace engineering, you had electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, right? You didn't have all the various disciplines that they have today. And as an aerospace engineer at Penn State, their aerospace program is more of a mechanical engineering type of program, right? It was more like structural design of the aircraft and that sort of thing. And I really wanted more of the advanced technology that comes along with those types of products and capabilities. So I went electrical, and so it was pretty broad-based at the time, and I specialized in like systems engineering and that sort of thing, like which today, you know, everything's controlled by computers and so on.
Yeah.
So and what was interesting is then when I got hired into Mack in 1988, I was literally the second degreed electrical engineer that started in the company.
Yeah.
And I vowed at the time, because the whole company was a mechanical engineering organization, and they were always like, what's this electrical guy doing here, right? You know, this is Mack is a mechanical engineering company, right?
Yeah.
And I vowed to him at the time, I said, we're going to take this business over. I said, electrical is going to, you know, this everything's going to be going that way. And within a short period of time, you know, by after 2 years, we were already working on the first electronic engines and the first anti-lock brake systems and that sort of thing, right? So then we had to start expanding that capability. So, and what was interesting, and I tell this story a lot, you know, when I started, my first project as an electrical engineer was to replace the windshield wiper motors on our Mack vehicles, right? Which were at the time still pneumatic motors. Mm-hmm. And if you ever, you know, see a truck coming down the road and you see one wiper was kind of doing this and the other wiper doing that, that was a typical of the air motors. As they would develop leaks or whatever, one would run slower than the other, and the wiper arms were never in sync and so on, right? So we wanted to convert them to electric motor driven systems, right? So that was my first project. So across the entire Mack, you know, product portfolio at the time, I engineered out the pneumatic systems and replaced them with electrical systems. And then my next project was working on what's now the LE model, you know, the low cab entry model.
Yeah.
We developed that project. I was the lead electrical engineer in that project. We had a team of about 15 engineers that developed that entire project at the time. And I had the entire electrical system design from front bumper to back bumper.
No kidding.
And at the time, it was our most complex electrical system vehicle, right? So it was dual steer, right? It was the first time we introduced the electronically controlled Allison automatic transmission, which at the time was called Allison Transmission Electronic Control, or ATEC. And today it's like their world transmission, which if we use an automatic, that's the transmission we generally use. And the interesting thing was, you know, there was a shift selector on the left and a shift selector on the right of the vehicle. And so I had to figure out the logic, systems logic. Well, how do I isolate? You know, because the theory was with that truck, an operator would be in the left seat, the sit down seat, drive to his route. Once he gets to his route, he would get out, go into the right-hand drive, which is a stand-up drive position, which is curbside. So as he's coming down the curb, if he has to get in and out, or if he watches the automated side loader, right, you know, picking up containers and dumping them. So I had to figure out, how do I isolate various systems from left to right? So it was a pretty complex, you know, vehicle, electrically speaking.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, you know, working at the Mack Engineering Center at the time as a young engineer, we built the first prototype. You know, it took us a number of months, you know, to put the first prototype together, and all the executives came over, right? Because this was an important product for Mack, because, you know, we had #1 market share position in the refuse industry at the time, and this was a new variant. You know, we worked with Waste Management and Republic Industries and so on, saying, what is your future demand, right? And they were really looking for this type of capability. So all the execs were standing there. They wanted to see, here's this first prototype. And I never forget standing there and going, oh my God, I hope the thing starts, right? Because it's the most complex electrical vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And then my fear was, you know, that wouldn't start, and they'd all turn and look at me, right? So eventually, you know, the tech got in and it started up. I'm like, oh, thank God, the vehicle started, right? And then my next concern was, okay, with this dual control transmission system, and it was the first push button electronic transmission that we installed in any Mack vehicle ever. I'm like, I hope it shifts into reverse and they can back it out of the bay for them to go and do demo rides with this truck, right? Fortunately, it all worked. And it was a successful test, but I was sitting there going, because I knew the spotlight would have been on myself, right?
Yeah.
As the electrical guy. But then interestingly enough, like I said, in short order, you know, we developed the first Mack Vehicle Management and Control System, or VMAC, which was the first electronic engine control system. And I worked collaboratively with the powertrain team in Hagerstown, Maryland, where we produce all our engines still today, right? And you want to talk about, you know, going from an old archaic mechanical machine to, you know, like modern vehicles of today, right? With electronic systems and controlling the engines. And then the next thing was the government came back, and mandated anti-lock brake systems. It originally was in the 70s, and they kind of failed because the technology kind of wasn't ready for prime time. So I was able to, engineer in anti-lock brake systems. And in fact, it was my first international opportunity because we were working with the Renault team at the time because we had become part of the Renault organization. And Europe had mandated anti-lock brake systems on their vehicles over there ahead of the U.S. On heavy vehicles. So myself and the pneumatics engineer and a couple of mechanical guys, we flew over to France for a week and met with our engineering counterparts at Renault and just kind of learned from them, like, okay, what do we need to look at and that sort of thing. And then we went and visited a couple of the system suppliers, which were all in Germany at the time. Like Bosch and Wabco, which later became part of the Meritor organization. And we kind of leapfrogged ourselves in the analog brake system technology, and then I wound up integrating that as well, right, across all Mack vehicles. And got to fly up to upstate Michigan, up to the northern, the Upper Peninsula, and do winter testing, and driving trucks down the middle of frozen old Air Force runways that this research company bought, and would use them to do all the testing of the systems and tweak the software to make sure that they were going to work and so on. So it was very interesting and very dynamic, right? But the good thing about an electrical engineer working in a company like Mack or now even in the Volvo Group, you get to touch the vehicle from the front bumper to the back, right? Where a lot of mechanical guys are responsible for one thing or another, right? They don't necessarily get the full view of the vehicle in many cases, right? But for me, eventually the electrical systems touched everything, right? So I really got to understand the complete vehicle, right? And then later in my career, like I said, I was given the opportunity then to lead the organization and lead the engineering effort, right? Which was, like I said,
that's remarkable.
Pretty remarkable, yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and how things have changed, right? My son's now in college. He's wanting to be an engineer. He's got a fascination for race cars and things that go fast. And so mechanical engineering is a big part, but anymore, looking at the technology, it's electrical and computer.
Oh, yeah.
Because with the number of sensors and the intellect these cars have, even in the racing world, mechanical is always good to have as a foundation, but what's it going to be in the future? And I guess you picked the right one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have two sons, and both are my oldest son is an electrical mechanical engineer, went to Penn State and did a couple internships at Mack and really learned a lot in his internships. And then he got hired by Northrop Grumman, the big aerospace defense contractor. Yeah. So I said, well, maybe David Hartzell made it into because he's a junior. So I said, maybe David Hartzell actually did make it into the aerospace defense, right?
Yeah.
The traditional piece, because he's at Northrop and he's at their energetics lab down in Maryland, right? So he makes the solid rocket motors that go into all of our missiles and even our space systems, right? So, and he was on the program as part of the Artemis program, which is the latest lunar launch system.
Yeah,
that we're going to try to put some men and women on the moon here in the next couple of years. So, and then my younger son, he's also at Penn State. He's studying mechanical engineering, but he actually did some internships at Mack and then learned a lot. And now he did an internship where my older son works at Northrop this past year. So they're both having opportunities as well to do some pretty incredible things, right? So
that's awesome. So what did you do? What were your responsibilities, head of engineering?
Pretty much all the new product development. So, like for example, and I was in that capacity from 2005 to 2010 as running the entire operation. And we were introducing a lot of the new products at the time, right? The Granite, what's called the Granite today, was developed under my leadership in that time window. And obviously it's been revised, since then, updated since then, but introduced the current Granite or the product that now is the current Granite product. We went throughout my career, emission regulations always was a big portion of it, right? So I was there when we had to be compliant with the 2007 emission regulations, which introduced the diesel particulate filters. Right. That was the first requirement in 2007. So led the efforts, across the engineering team, making sure our vehicles were compliant with that. And then I was still leading the operation at the time when EPA 10 came along, which added the SCR systems. And that was a lot of work, right? Because you have to coordinate, obviously, with all the powertrain solutions as well. And then all the electronic systems on the vehicles had to continuously be updated, right? So it was really, big effort. And you're under a lot of pressure because those are dates, right? They're set by the federal government. And if you're not compliant, you can't sell and deliver product, right? So engineering's square in the eyes of the corporation, right? We got to get the job done.
Yeah.
It's got to be done correctly. It's got to be done at a good cost, competitive cost. The quality and reliability's got to be there, all that sort of thing. You got to put that product out there against those federally mandated dates, or else the brand can't deliver trucks.
Right.
And and then you're gonna have somebody standing in your office or knocking on your door saying, okay, where are we at here, right?
So, how about now?
But it's good. I mean, it's so you develop the abilities to be able to lead those types of efforts, right, and get the right people involved and drive the activity and make things happen, right? So
yeah. Why was Mack Defense created as a separate organization from Mack?
So about 2005 or so, it started as like a government sales team. So it's just a couple of people. One of my former engineering colleagues, that was one of the leaders in engineering, went over to the team, and then they brought some sales and business development folks in from the outside. And it started as just a government sales operation. It was reporting in through Mack International Sales at the time. Mm-hmm. And then they kept working on it, for a number of years, and they started, getting some opportunity and so on. But it was just a very small team, and then it came to the realization that to really be successful and really be able to grow the business, we had to become Mack Defense LLC. So we're a standalone business entity, wholly owned by Mack, obviously, but ultimately Mack being part of the Volvo Group. AB Volvo, in the eyes of the U.S. government, is a foreign company. Right. So to really go after major programs with the military, right, most of them have classified content, mostly around the force protection systems or the armoring systems on the vehicle. And the only way that the U.S. government would allow us, as being wholly owned by, our ultimate parent being a foreign entity, even though they're now a NATO ally, right, we had to have some degree of separation from the company. So we had to create what's Mack Defense LLC. And part of the stipulation from the Department of Defense, in order to give us our security clearances, we actually literally operate a secret level cleared facility. Many of us have that level of clearance with the government, because most of our programs, that's the level of clearance that you need. There's classified, there's secret, and there's top secret, right? So we're secret, right? Our systems are at that level. We don't make weapon systems that usually requires a TS level clearance, right? So in order to get those clearances from the DoD, we had to basically operate as an independent company, and we basically are managed by an external board. Okay. And that's one of the stipulations. And on our board, what constitutes our board of directors is we have to have more what they call outside directors, which are people who have no present or past affiliation with the company, right? And then we have inside directors, which are representatives from Mack, right? And I'm the officer director on the board. And the purpose for that is it really is to protect what the U.S. government calls foreign ownership, control, and influence, right? Or FOCI. The acronym for it is FOCI. So our board's responsibility, principally, and the reason why we have to have more outside directors than inside, is if the U.S. government grants us a contract, because Volvo's a foreign company, the U.S. government wants to ensure that the foreign parent organization would not unduly influence our ability to deliver on that contract. Because once you're awarded that contract, it becomes a national defense item, right? You're part of the defense industrial base. You're expected under any circumstance to deliver against that contract obligation, right? So they don't want any undue influence, right? So that's really one of the primary responsibilities for our board, is to ensure that we're going to deliver against that contract, and that the Volvo Group or anyone else isn't going to impede on that. And then the other part of our board as well, because the government's giving us sensitive information or classified information, or now in today's world, there's also controlled unclassified information, which has become a big new thing. And there's new security requirements that we have to put in place to be compliant with that as well. Part of our board's responsibility, we have a committee on that board chaired by one of the outside directors, which is called the Government Security Committee. And their principal oversight is to ensure that we are putting together all the right security protocols, everything from protecting that classified information that we get. We have to have certified systems by the U.S. government to handle that classified information. We have to have, like I said, our own networks. Like we have Teams, we have Outlook, but they're set on our own unique servers that Mack Defense is responsible for. They're not part of the Volvo Group servers. So sometimes it's a little difficult for people to communicate with us. Like they can't IM me on Teams, right? Because we're on a separate network. But that's just part of the stipulation for the government, giving us the ability to do what we do, right? And so it's just part of what we have to do. So.
Sure. So onboarding new employees has got to be interesting too, because now that the work that you do is related to government and classified and secret information, they've got to be vetted too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a process. Believe it or not, there's a government process.
I'm sure there is.
One of my people that are on my staff is a facility security officer. He's kind of like the government oversight guy, right? Technically, he reports to the chairman of my government security committee, which is one of our outside directors. Because I actually don't have the authority to if I wanted to fire that person for whatever reason, I have to get the approval through the government security committee guy, because that person is the eyes of the government living in our office, right? Everything from export control regulations, because most of our products are export controlled. There's still international traffic of arms regulations, or ITAR regulations. That more today, they've kind of downplayed that some. It really only applies to a lot of weapon systems. So our vehicles are export regulated. Even the armor solutions are export regulated at this point. But that person has to ensure that we're in compliance with all that. And we wanted him to make sure we're in compliance, because I don't want to get a knock on the door from some federal agent saying, "Hey, Mr. Hartzell, you're not compliant with this. Come with me. You're going to go take a vacation for a while," right?
Yeah.
And so it's very important stuff, and we have to take it very seriously. You know what I mean? And it's just the way that we have to work, right? And then, like I said, most of the rest of Mack Defense organization is structured around being able to support all these high-level military program opportunities, right, which are very complex.
Yeah.
Government acquisition, especially on the DoD side, is very complex. You need some specialized expertise to be able to understand it, and make sure you deliver back in a compliant way. So, and with that, I'll just mention Mack Defense. I mean, part of it, being a standalone business, we are a fully functional business entity. So I have all the major functions of any major corporation, right? So engineering, finance, legal, HR, program management. I have my own purchasing team, my own quality organization, all the pieces of the puzzle that I need to run a complete business. And part of that is because, we have to do a lot on our own.
Yeah.
And we do use Mack and Volvo-based commercial products to do a lot of what we do, right? So we have we have to interface with that. But we take those products and we do a lot of work to adapt those products to meet the military need.
Yeah.
Right. And in today's world, the good thing, especially under the Trump administration now, right, and even the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and so on, they're pushing really hard, to use and leverage commercial industry, right? Because if you look at the traditional defense industry, like their modernization has a very, very slow pace. And in our industry base, modernizes at a much faster pace, a lot driven by regulatory demands and so on, or just technology in general, or the need to stay ahead of your competitors, right?
Right.
And bring in new capabilities to the marketplace. So they're really looking to take full advantage of that commercial technology. And a lot of the programs that we're working on today, very large program opportunities for the Army and the U.S. Marine Corps, is they're wanting to take advantage of the technology commercial industry brings. And then us apply that to a militarized base commercial vehicle to meet their requirements, right?
Yeah. Today, we highlight Road Dog Coffee Company and their premium coffee for the highway hero within. Your first order comes with a 20% discount. You can select from many different coffees, from the blonde roast, named Women Truckers Love Coffee, to the popular medium roast, Long Haul, to their dark roast, Black Dog. Road Dog Coffee Company offers its coffee to anyone who supports and loves our highway heroes. Road Dog Coffee is focused on its mission of supporting the men and women of transportation who work hard, day in and day out, because they love what they do and we love them. Your initial order receives a 20% discount. After that, use the code MACK15, no spaces, to receive a 15% discount on your additional purchases. That's MACK15. Visit RoadDogCoffee.com today and get on the road. We are here with David Hartzell, President and CEO of Mack Defense. So Mack Defense started 2005, but Mack Trucks has been in the military and been providing for the government for over 100 years now.
Yeah.
So let's talk some about the history of Mack being in defense.
Mack as you just mentioned, is now a 125-year-old company, started in 1900.
Yeah.
Moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1905, right? So we've been producing trucks, which is where Mack Defense is based in our Allentown operation. Been producing trucks in Allentown since 1905, which is pretty cool. And I'll just add this: Mack Defense, Mack had moved its production operations outside the city limits of Allentown back in 1987. We used to produce inside the city limits. And we still produce in the Lehigh Valley. Most of our trucks are produced in the Lehigh Valley, which is a suburb of the greater Allentown area. But Mack Defense, when we started producing some of our U.S. Army trucks, we started producing back inside the Allentown city limits. So that was in 1987. They stopped that production, but in 2021 we started producing trucks in the Allentown city limits, which is pretty cool as well. For our area. In World War I, almost more than 100 years ago. Mack started its service with the U.S. military, by providing thousands of vehicles to support the U.S. forces, but also some of our allied forces and notably the British soldiers as well in the European theater. And it was the old Mack AC model, that we delivered over there. And interestingly enough, if you ever look at a picture of the old Mack AC model, if you look at the design of the hood and the front, view of the vehicle, it kind of has this pugnacious front nose to it, right?
Right.
And the British soldiers start calling our trucks the Bulldog Macks because they thought it looked like a bulldog, right? Because of the pugnacious front appearance. I also like to say, but more importantly, they call them the Bulldog Macks, which, if you don't remember, the bulldog was the country symbol for Great Britain, right?
Yeah.
So very proudly, they were calling our trucks the Bulldog Macks because they were tough and reliable and dependable, like their bulldog, right? And the good thing for Mack is that image kind of stuck with us, right? Because those vehicles provided great service, during those campaigns, and later became our corporate symbol. 1924, a gentleman who was the chief engineer at the time, Alfred Masery, he actually was injured and he was in a hospital. And he literally took a bar of soap and he sat there and he carved what really is our bulldog symbol that's on the front of our trucks to this day. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, in the early 1930s, I think it was 1932, Mack basically copyrighted that and adopted that as their trademark symbol, right? And it's been on the front of our trucks ever since, right? And I'm a very proud wearer of our bulldog, pins and so on. And I've spent so much time in my life. I tell everybody, quite honestly, I have bulldog blood in my veins, right? And I can honestly say I have bulldog blood in my veins, right? Yeah. It kind of gets into your heart and soul a little bit, right? Because
it does.
It's a globally recognized brand, right? And anybody that's been around with the Mack organization for a long time, people wear bulldog memorabilia. We wear shirts or lapel pins, or some people even get tattoos or whatever, right? But it really does become part of who you are, right? And you want to represent that image very well and maintain that brand image, right? So
the culture is incredible. I've been with Mack a year and a half, and you go to meetings and it's not handshakes, it's hugs. It's like this big family surrounded around an American brand, with a bulldog on the hood. Yeah, and it's unique for sure. So Mack has been in service with the military for many, many, many years, right? Over 100 years. And then same thing in World War II. We delivered tens of thousands of vehicles to support the campaigns in World War II. And then they performed very, very well. I mean, Mack definitely got a notable reputation out of that. And it was good business for him even at the time, but more importantly, supporting the country and the war cause. And even to this day, what I tell my people and what we tell our customers is, we don't want to just provide you a product, right, and a base product or a minimalist product, right? Mack has always provided the best product that the industry can see, right? And even today, myself and my team, our whole mission is, we want to leverage the full capability of Mack and quite honestly, even the greater Volvo Group and provide the soldiers the best product that we can provide. And it's interesting because, when you look at defense contracts and the acquisition process, right? They'll come out, the Army or the Marine Corps or whoever will come out with a requirement, like a performance spec requirement. And they always have like threshold levels, which is like the basic minimum acceptable level that they will do. And then they have what they call like their objective level, right? When we approach
an opportunity, we strive to meet the objective level because that's really what the Army's looking for.
Yeah.
Right. And we want to use the capabilities of Mack and the Volvo organization to do the best job that we can do because let's face it, who wants their son or daughter to be, operating one of these vehicles in a combat zone, God forbid, and something's not right with the vehicle or its performance isn't at the level it needs to be or whatever, so we take that responsibility extremely seriously.
Yeah.
And we want to provide the best that we can provide to ensure that those men and women can get home safely, right, at the end of their mission, right? So, and we feel very passionate about that. And I think, again, that's, Mack in the marketplace, we provide you a premium product, right? We're not going after that cheap, down and dirty product, right? We want to give you the best that we can because it's got the Mack name on it, right? And that's how we want to approach the industry. And like I said, we carry that same sentiment over into the Mack Defense world as well. So,
what kind of design to product testing has to go into place for something like that above and beyond our traditional civilian trucks?
Mostly everything Mack Defense is doing, we start with our commercial-based product. And the Mack Granite is principally the platform that we use because it's our construction vocational product. It's very robust. It's very reliable. The frame ladder systems, the suspension systems, et cetera, are extremely durable, right? Because we put it in pretty much any application that you can think of, right? From cement mixer applications to tanker applications, logging applications, whatever, right? So it's a very robust system capability, and obviously that creates a great platform to be used in a military application, and so it gives a very good starting base to work from. And then from that, however, the military always has some unique requirements. Some of the basic ones, as you mentioned, is force protection. Because even the heavy dump trucks that we're currently providing to the military, they have a version that is a full-up armor version.
Okay.
Because these vehicles, can get deployed into an operation where it's supporting, frontline operations or whatever. And so obviously they want force protection to keep the soldiers safe. And it's the level of protection that the Army looks for today on a wheeled vehicle. It's MRAP level protection. And a lot of people are familiar with that term, back in the Iraq, Afghanistan days, back in the 2000s, right? That's mine-resistant, ambush-protected, capability. So it's really both ballistic protection, from small arms fire, and then it's also blast protection as well at a high level, right? So, especially in the Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of soldiers were getting injured, with roadside bombs, or IEDs that would explode on the side of the road and then create situations. So we have to design very robust force protection systems to mitigate those threats, right? Both ballistic. So even the glass, it's all ballistic glass and so on. The steel's hardened, and we can't. It's a classified level of protection that the Army has, so we can't divulge, right? But it's very robust. And then same thing, underbody protection and side blast protection. And what's interesting is now, what's seen going on in the Ukraine theater, right, is these UAVs. These drones, aerial drones, and they're weaponized. So now, what you used to have more protections from underbody protection for blast events. Now they're starting to look at and probably going to change some of the requirements for top level protection as well. So hardening the roofs even more so and so on, right? So that's definitely something we're already looking at, right, to provide that level of protection. So that's one of the most notable differences, right? But then even every military vehicle has an off-road mission profile component to it. The Army's, it's typically a 25% off-road mission profile, and then primary and secondary roads is the other part of it, right? The Marine Corps has an even more robust requirement. Theirs is a 75% off-road mission profile.
Okay. So
with that requires, you have to be able to traverse certain features. Their percent grades are steeper. 30% is the norm, sometimes as high as 40% grades.
Yeah.
You have to be able to operate on that. So even, people don't think about it, but you have to be able to pull oil from the oil pan on a 30 or 40% grade.
Yeah.
Right. And so that requires a special setup, even that, right? And then, just your center of gravities, all that kind of stuff have to be taken into consideration. So that's also a requirement. And then, like I said, the off-road mission profile, like there's features like you have to traverse ditches and trenches of a certain distance. So you have to look at your wheelbase and your axle placements to ensure that, you also have enough axles touching the ground to get across those features. Or they dictate the ability to traverse, like say, for example, like a vertical step up, and their minimum requirement is 24 inches. So you have to be able to go up to a vertical 24-inch wall and be able to climb up and over it, right? So that many times dictates the diameter of the tires and the type of tires that you need to use, tire and wheel equipment that you need to use. As one example, they dictate the size of, they'll do like what they call a half round test, right? So take a bowling ball and cut it in half, right? But then there's like 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch half rounds, and you have to be able to traverse those at a certain speed and only exhibit so much power absorption in the driver's seat. So they're basically measuring how much, is the driver going to sit there and experience this while he's, driving down the middle of the road or trying to get out of harm's way or something like that. So that requires you to really analyze the suspension capability and make sure it's meeting those requirements and being able to traverse that off-road terrain. And then they have fording requirements. Every vehicle has to be able to ford a minimum of 1 meter or a little over 3 feet. Marine Corps is even more than that. They're over 5 feet of fording capability. So anything that's going to be below the fording line, and they will literally drive the vehicle into 3 feet of water or 5 feet of water and shut it off. It'll sit there for 30 minutes, and you have to be able to restart and drive it back out.
Wow. As
the fording requirement. So we have to protect things like starter motors and all that kind of stuff that we can't really bring above the fording line. Things we can bring above the fording line, we will if we can, right? Or make sure they have the right level of waterproofness to survive.
And that'll affect center of gravity too, depending.
Yes, it will. So there's a lot of things that we have to do. And then couple of the other big requirements is every military vehicle has military lift and tie down provisions. So every single military vehicle has to be able to be transported either via rail car or on a boat or in an aircraft. Our vehicles are generally bigger. They won't fit in a C-130, most of our vehicles. But C-5s and C-17s, which is the big air transport vehicles that the military uses, we have to be able to fit into there. So that defines a specific aperture size that you have to, height and width, et cetera. But then more importantly, you have to have these tested and validated military lift down and tie down procedures. Picture this, you have this big giant truck in the back of a C5, right? Yeah. And your tie down provision didn't hold, it broke. And that vehicle starts moving around in that plane's going to crash. Yeah. Right. So it has to be compliant with that. Same thing on rail car and same thing on a boat, right? They have to be able to pick the vehicle up and load it into a boat or so on and then tie it down as well, right? So that's another big one. And there's a fair amount of engineering, quite honestly, it has to go into that. Sure. Because obviously you're making attachments to the frame rail and so on. If you have body equipment, like even our dump body on our heavy dump truck for the Army, we have special provisions on the backside under the dump body to guide the lift straps, right, and that sort of thing. So that's a big requirement. And then the one that's also notable, every Army vehicle today, the U.S. military vehicles of today, they use a special paint system and a corrosion inhibiting system. The word for it is chemical agent resistant coating, or CARC, C-A-R-C.
Everything's right? An acronym too.
Yeah. And that's one thing you get in defense business. Like you learn a whole new language, right? And so everything has to be CARC painted. So we can't use our standard commercial industrial enamels, even the eco process and so on. So it's very stringent. So even the components from our commercial space that we use, we will get those raw components. We'll ship them. We have some third-party vendors that we utilize to do that CARC painting for us.
I was going to ask where that was done.
Yeah, we can't use our commercial systems, right, in our factories because it would kind of mix it up too much, right? So we take all those same parts, we ship them to a third party. They CARC paint them in compliance with the military requirement, both the primer coats and then the top coat. And that top coat, what it does is it couple things. What it does is it gives the Army, if a vehicle would be involved in a chemical attack, like if it's exposed to chemical type of warfare agents, that paint within a certain period of time, it allows them to more easily contaminate. Like it won't absorb and hold those chemicals, so they're able to decontaminate the vehicle if it's exposed. But then the other thing it does, it's a very, very low matte finish, and it has some IR reduction properties to it. So it'll reduce its infrared signature. In modern warfare, everybody's got night vision and infrared, capabilities, right? But it does help you lower the overall infrared signature to just, help the soldiers stay safe, right? So that's one of their base requirements. So it's a lot of engineering work that we do to be compliant. And then other things that you do, like they have equipment racks. Like they put standardized equipment for communications, their battle systems and things like that they utilize, right? So we have to provide them specialized racks in the cabs. We have to provide them storage containers on the exterior of the vehicle for what they call basic issue items, right? Shovels, chains for the tires, what have you? Anything that the soldiers would need to maintain, a mission, right? So.
Spare tires positioned.
Spare tire, every vehicle. Like, it's interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the base requirements, even on our heavy dump truck, is they wanted the same tire and wheel equipment at all locations. So front axle to even the rear axles. So we don't use a tandem rear axle. We use a single wheel at all locations, and then we have to provide a spare wheel with a lift capability, so we store it up on top of the vehicle, and then it has to be all lifted down because they're obviously 400 or 500 pounds, right? So that is a requirement. So most of the vehicles have that same tire all wheel location, so they can have one spare, because otherwise you'd have to carry front tires and rear tire, right? So they do that, and yes, thank you. That's it.
I'm guessing they're ballistic tested too for the tires, right?
They're run flat systems that if they get shot, once you up armor, so they can maintain mobility.
Got to keep moving.
Even the fuel tanks, along with the occupant areas, right? We protect the fuel systems, right? For both ballistic protection to make sure that, there's like a self-sealing coating that we apply to the fuel tank. So if it gets shot, you're not going to just leak out all your fuel. It would have to take a lot of hits before you would lose all your fuel. We put a anti-flammability mat around it, right? So that if there is something, it will contain any type of flammable explosions, right? And then we have to put ballistic protection as well, like for side IED, fragmentation situations and stuff like that, right? So there's a lot of engineering went into the fuel system as well, just to protect it. So,
what are the main purposes for the military trucks that we provide? I mean, is it like construction type stuff, or are we transporting troops, or maybe it's all of that?
Yeah, it's all of it, quite honestly. One of our big programs that we have now, it was a program that we were awarded back in for the U.S. Army back in 2018, is what the Army calls the M917A3. So it's the third generation heavy dump truck for the Army. And Active Army uses them, the Army Reserve uses them, and the Army National Guard uses them. So all three components of the Army utilize that product. And it's an engineering type vehicle. So like the engineering units within the Army that are responsible for creating airways, maintaining airways, creating new roads, creating base encampments, any of that type of application that will be used by those engineering components utilize that product like as a construction support type vehicle. So it's really cool. So we have Mack Granites out there, and some of the other notable things like what the Army calls a dual use capability, right? So it's something that can be used and deployed externally to support combat operations, but it's also used domestically, right? Like especially through the Army National Guard, and every state has a guard unit, right? And then like, for example, even down here in North Carolina, a little over a year ago, you had Hurricane Helene, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of tore up the western part of the state. And the North Carolinian National Guard deployed M978-3s, Mack heavy dump trucks to help in the cleanup efforts. And I don't have the stat on the top of my head, but the amount of tonnage of debris that they hauled away in that cleanup operation was incredible. So that's one of the signature programs we have today. It was, when we got the contract, it was valued up to $296 million, right, for up to 683 trucks. We've been delivering on that program ever since 2018. Typical Army program. So year one, after we got the contract award, we had 12 months to deliver the first non-armored test assets of the heavy dump. So we had to deliver 6 trucks. They went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, which is in Maryland. It's the Army's Proving Ground Center. And they put them through 12 months of vehicle performance testing, extended, rapid durability testing. The vehicles performed very, very well. They ran them through all their off-road courses and everything that vehicle is going to be subjected to. And quite honestly, our vehicles performed very, very well. We really had no catastrophic failures. We had a couple little cleanup things. We call it the infamous Aberdeen mud, right? They have this mud that just clings to everything.
Yeah.
And we had some issues. We had to go and put some shields and things like that to keep mud from collecting up, like, for example, like the analog brake system, the modulators, right? It was plugging up the exhaust port, so they didn't function. So very quickly, we were able to just develop little shields and keep that from happening, right? And keep the vehicles moving forward. So after 12 months, we passed everything successfully. And then year 2 of the contract, we had to deliver the armored test assets. So then they went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And then they repeated all the same vehicle performance testing. Because obviously the truck, as we design it, is designed to accept a full up armored military armor solution. So the base truck that we deliver uses our standard commercial body in white, right? Not up armored at all. And the level of force protection that the armor requires, there's no way we can up armor that commercial cab sufficiently to meet that level of force protection. So we have to design from ground up armored cab, right, with the right kinds of steel and everything that comes involved, that blast seats, all kind of things to mitigate injury and protect the soldier, right? And so that cab weighs 4 times the weight of the standard commercial cab.
Really? 4
times.
Wow.
So when we designed the truck, the frame rail system is designed to, in anticipation of that extra weight.
Yeah.
The axles are designed to have that extra capacity. So, nothing has to change.
Right. When you mean up armor, are you taking a truck not intended for armored, and then it's like we need it and just convert it? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, they can either buy it up armored ready with that armored cab on it, or we design it such that it's what we call a replaceable armored cab.
But it's essentially the same chassis.
It's
Is that
the
what you're saying?
same exact chassis. All the interface points are there.
Yeah.
It stays the same.
Yeah.
So if the Army has a non-armored asset and they want to up armor it now, right? It's going to be deployed, right? And it's going to go into a threat zone. So they can literally, within 2 days, like 2 soldiers, 2 days, they can take that cab off, and here's the armored cab. They can drop it right on. It will bolt right up to the chassis. We use hard mounts with rubber dampers, not like air mounts like on a commercial cab because of the weight and the blast protection requirement. But then all the steering, interfaces, whether it's steering, pneumatic interfaces, electrical interfaces, anything that interfaces that cab is exactly the same. And the good thing is, and this is a little bit different than what you'll see in most military vehicles, what we were able to do is, the Army's buying mostly non-armored assets, right? So we use our standard Mack commercial, human-machine interfaces, so the instrumentation, the switches, the steering, all that sort of thing, right? When you go to full up armored, we were able to reutilize all that same human-machine interface, right? So now think about that. So if a soldier goes from driving a non-armored version and now he's going to get into an armored version, you don't want the location of switches or controls or the information you're getting from your dash cluster, right, to be different. So there's no retraining required, right, to go from one to the other, which is a huge advantage, right? And most military vehicles don't have that capability. So that we think that's a distinct advantage that we're bringing to the table.
Tremendous familiarity is enormous.
Yeah.
Just on the road, having a trucker familiar with where the toggle switches are in a way that they can reach without diverting their eyes.
Yeah.
That's safe there. But, going from a non-armored to an armored, if it's the same, it makes things easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing we were able to do too in our design is we were able to, you lose some visibility compared to a commercial cab because of the nature of the armored glass, right, the transparent armor. But our level of visibility compared to most armored cabs that in the military fleet or even the Marine Corps fleet is significantly greater. And we've got notable feedback on that, right? Which is good because it makes it easier to operate the vehicle. So that second round of test assets we delivered were the full up armored versions. They went to Aberdeen. They retested everything from a vehicle performance and durability perspective. But then they also did the blast and ballistic testing. We delivered them 6 test assets. They did all of their testing, and they literally shot and blew up 4 of the vehicles, but they didn't have to use the other 2 because we met all of their requirements. And we designed the system to meet most of their objective level requirements.
Yeah.
Which, quite honestly, that was our goal, right? Again, like I mentioned earlier, right? We want to give the best vehicle that we can provide. And what more is important than the force protection system?
Right.
Right. So if the Army said, hey, here's our requirement, but here's really what we'd like, we designed for, hey, this is what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's going to save lives, right?
Yeah.
And we were able to achieve many of those objective results. And when they blow them up, like they put those, the crash test dummies, they put those in the seats.
Yeah.
They put, force sensors on the spine of those dummies, right? They put it on the legs and so on, right? And even like the seats are designed to mitigate blast. So if you have an underbody blast, right, a lot of soldiers in like the Afghanistan theater were getting leg injury, lower leg injuries, or spinal injuries, right, because of those forces that would be imparted into their extremities or into their back, right. So this is designed with blast mitigating seats. You don't get that force vector transfer into the soldier, right. Mm-hmm. And the seats are designed to really clamp them down, because the other thing that happens with a vehicle, even though our vehicles, the GVW of our vehicles is 95,000 pounds, right? But the level of protection that they do, it will pick that vehicle up and it will turn it upside down at the level that they're specifying. So one of the other things is you have to protect the soldier not only from the blast event itself, but now that vehicle, you got to think that vehicle's launching in the air, and so to come down, conceivably could come down upside down or on its side. So you have to make sure that a lot of soldiers were getting neck injuries, because then the vehicle would come back down, and then they're getting concussive forces or spinal neck injuries because of landing upside down on their heads and so on. So all that's taken into consideration in the designs to really protect the soldier, right, and make sure they can get out of that vehicle and walk away, right. So.
It's September 11th. We honor and remember the Americans who lost their lives and those impacted by the attacks on September 11, 2001. We will observe a moment of silence in their honor. Even through the darkest of times, the American spirit perseveres. We're here with David Hartzell, President and CEO with Mack Defense. Well, we're airing this on September 11th, and we talked earlier about how we reacted personally when those events occurred. But let's talk about Mack Trucks and in their response. At this point, Mack Defense wasn't an entity, but after those terrorist attacks, what did Mack do on this particular occasion?
Yeah, I remember 9/11 well. I was actually on an airplane looking to fly out that day, right? So it was a little harrowing experience. But as things unfolded, after the tragedy occurred, right, and then especially when the cleanup efforts started, even the rescue efforts, I should say, when the rescue efforts started, because there were some people that were still alive and trapped underneath some of the debris and the rubble from what had happened. Mack stood up. I was part of Mack, obviously, at the time when that happened. And Mack stood up, and we donated a number of trucks that were on ground zero, right, helping with the cleanup effort. So you saw a lot of Mack Granite, dump trucks and other vehicles there, water tank trucks and things like that, helping in that cleanup operation. And first the rescue operation, but then afterwards the cleanup operation. So yeah, Mack absolutely was involved in that effort. And many people, Mack has that old adage of, the truck that helped build America, right? And Mack Trucks played a huge part in building New York City and the skyline, right? And, hauling cement and construction materials and everything, right? Because we started in Brooklyn, New York, right. In 1900, and then came to Allentown, which is just an hour, west of New York City, right? So yeah, Mack, it was an important thing for Mack to participate in that and help in that effort, right? So
yeah, well, it's important for us to honor those that perished and those affiliated, and it's important for us to do that and stand up for America and for Mack, of course, to provide, to help the cleanup and take care of business. We're stronger together, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And again, it's part of the signature of the Mack brand, right? Yeah. Again, we've helped like I said, we've helped build America. We've helped support the war efforts abroad. For many years, Mack was the largest exporter of trucks from the United States, all around the world. So you travel to some other countries. I mean, Mack is a very recognized brand, and still to this day, and then as Mack Defense, like I said, through some of our contracting efforts, are able to get products back out in a lot of parts of the world, right? And people like the product, right? And they really respect the brand, and you're helping a lot of really great causes, to help keep the world moving forward, right? So
yeah. So what kind of opportunities are you working on today?
Our first big military contract was we delivered just shy of 1,600 vehicles to the Canadian military. And they were medium-duty logistics support vehicles, right? And it was our first big contract. And we delivered all those vehicles by the end of, right before COVID hit in 2020. So by the end of the Q1 of 2020. So in March, we finished delivering all those vehicles. We also had to deliver 300 trailering systems to support some of the logistics capabilities of that fleet. And then we provided 160 armored protected cabs as well. And like I said, they were all delivered on time and per contract. And then we've been under a sustainment contract with them. So we're still helping them maintain their fleet to this day. They have several hundred of those vehicles have been deployed to the country of Latvia as part of the NATO coalition that was preventing any further Russian aggression. And if you look on the map where Latvia is, I mean, it's right there next to Russia, right? So they were one of the keystone or cornerstone pieces of the NATO plan to position assets, in and around that region to make sure Russia wasn't going to do anything else in terms of expansion into other countries and so on. So those fleet of vehicles, we are actually providing service and support for those vehicles in the country of Latvia. And we're actually leveraging existing Volvo dealership networks in the country of Latvia to help maintain those vehicles while in operation in that NATO effort over there that the Canadian military is involved in, right? So we've been working on for the last couple of years now is some other really, really big opportunities with both the U.S. Army and also U.S. Marine Corps. So the first one with the U.S. Army, it's what they're calling the Common Tactical Truck. So it's a program in which they're looking at their heavy tactical vehicle fleet, which is the heavy logistical vehicle fleet for the U.S. military. They have over 75,000 vehicles in that fleet stationed all around the world. And they're looking to modernize that fleet. And they're looking to replace literally half of that fleet.
Wow. So
this is a 36,000 plus vehicle opportunity that they're looking to do and embark on. And then the other signature program that we've been working on as well, similar, the U.S. Marine Corps has their own fleet of what they call their medium tactical vehicle. It's their medium-duty logistics vehicle. It's like a 65,000 GVW vehicle. And they're looking for their next generation replacement vehicle. I mean, the current design's quite a number of years old, performs well, but they're looking for modernization, right? And a lot of the same capabilities I just described that the Army's looking for, the Marine Corps is looking for as well.
Wow.
Right? They want hybrid capability if we can prove that it can work in a Marine Corps application. Sure. They want exportable power. They want silent watch capability. They want all those types of capabilities as well. They want some of the driver active safety systems and so on, right, to help keep the soldier safe when they're operating vehicles in even a non-threat environment, right? So the Marine Corps actually has partnered with us, and we are working on developing that next generation medium tactical vehicle for them. It's a 4x4 configuration and also a 6x6 configuration. For an
MD, medium duty.
Yeah, but we actually, believe it or not, we actually use the Granite-based chassis platform because of the robustness demands. But the gross vehicle weight ratings of it, the suspension system ratings and so forth, will be more of a medium duty version. All these vehicles for Marine Corps, every one of them is up armored, so we have to use a full up armored cab. Interestingly enough, the Marine Corps, though, because a lot of places where the Marine Corps operates are like in islands in the South Pacific and so on, right? So they create these small little runways and so on. So they can't land a C-5 or C-17 because they're a big giant plane and they need a big long runway. So they still use C-130s, which is a smaller transport aircraft, right? And the getting to the cargo hull of a C-130, there's really pretty restrictive heights to be able to get in through the back opening of that aircraft. get the vehicle in place. So we have to give them a cab that's able to be reducible down to under 100 inches to get it into the back of the C-130, right? But we're able to do that, right, and provide that capability. So Marine Corps has about 12,000 of those vehicles in their fleet today, and they're looking to replace half of that. So it's a over 6,000 vehicle opportunity as well.
Thank you so much for your time this morning to join us and sharing a lot about Mack Defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian, thank you for the opportunity. And I absolutely love talking about Mack Defense and Mack in general, right? It's been a huge part of my life. And like I said, I'm very proud to have the opportunity to represent the company and what the Mack brand and what Mack Defense can bring to our military customers around the world and even our federal customers as well, whether it's various federal agencies. So again, like I said earlier, our mission is always to bring the best of what the Mack brand can produce and give that to our end customers and make sure they can complete their mission and return home safely. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Beyond the Bulldog with David Hartzell, President and CEO of Mack Defense. Our mission is to provide stories and content that keep you entertained and informed. Let us know what you think about this week's podcast and share ideas about what you want to hear and who you think would make a great guest. Please leave your suggestions in the comments section below.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and make sure to follow the Bulldog.